So here's you, and here's Michael Mosley.
Yes, ma'am.
So at this point, he had already seen you on the dance floor, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you'd already rejected a drink from him.
Yes, ma'am.
What is he doing right there?
Whispering something in my ear with his arm around me.
How are you reacting to this?
I just think I'm trying not to give it any attention and just kind of turn away a little bit.
And is that when Mr. Folks came up to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And are y'all all traveling down the stairs now?
Yes.
So you see the interaction. That's Emma Yoder. She's kind of the one who's connected to one faction that is inside the bar. And the defendant, Mosley, Michael Mosley, who's been approaching her and hitting on her at the bar. Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae, joining us live tonight from Nashville, Tennessee, to try to fill in the gaps here. So what happened between that interaction, that last interaction, and then this fight breaking out that results in the death of 2 young men and the stabbing of a third who gets stabbed in his eye?
Well, Vinny, there were a lot of things that unfolded. One of those, there was some smack talking, and then there was a physical smack, or really much more than that, and that was laid out by the prosecution today through their witnesses. I first want to show you a group photo that was taken. Emma Yoder was able to introduce this during her testimony. This is of all of those friends, including the 2 victims. They were at this bar in an informal reunion of sorts during their Christmas break, and the person there, third from the left in the middle with the flannel shirt on, is Samuel Folks. He's the one who was on the other end of that physical smack, a punch that the lead case detective was able to show this jury what the prosecution says is the beginning of this brawl, and that it shows that this defendant was the first aggressor. Take a look.
When Michael Mosley comes out here, we put the circle around him. Yeah, it's Sergio with his arm around him, and we zoomed in. There's JC this side of him, and Daniel right here. That's where he approaches Sam and starts punching him in the face. If we could pause it. At this point, he breaks free, and he steps back. This is after he punched Sam in the face. He fixed his hair, gathered himself, and ran back in towards the crowd.
Now, this is just a few minutes before this continues to escalate and results in those stabbings. Sam Folks was a friend of Emma Yoder. He's the one who put his arm around her at one point while that unwanted or unwelcome advance happened, and told Michael Mosley, "She's my girlfriend," to try and ward him off. It seemed, according to the prosecution, that he continued to come up to her, and that's when those words were exchanged, and then that punch.
You know, I'm watching that, and my understanding is that the defense is going to be self-defense, but did the defense put any evidence of that in through cross-examination and the way they're questioning these witnesses? Because as you just showed us, it looks like the defendant is the one who starts the physical confrontation here.
They really did use their cross-examination wisely with the detective on the stand today, and even with the other witnesses, in asking them about the stature of this defendant. So here's a look at Michael Mosley in court today, and it's something that strikes me when I'm sitting in the gallery looking at him sitting at the defense table. This is him walking in. You can see that he's not quite as tall or as big as the guys who are around him when he's coming into the courtroom. And when he sits there, he does look much smaller than his attorneys. And that's something that they have highlighted, that this was a much smaller guy than the other men who were involved in this. Here's a look at the video that they highlighted, zoomed in, and made sure this jury saw a different part that comes after the punch and after the move across the street.
Well, look sort of right below the live music sign, the grass to the right of that. I think you see Mr. Mosley hit the grass. You see Mr. Mosley?
I believe that's Mr. Mosley, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. We'll offer that as our next exhibit. And I'm going to show you where Ms. J.C. Harper gets shoved from the loser's camera from down the street. That's DFT ID 16. See her get shoved? You see Ms. Harper get shoved?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You heard the defense there bringing up J.C. Harper. That's a woman who was a friend of the defendant. She was with him when they arrived at the Dogwood bar. So you have this competing theory from the defense that they're suggesting to the jury that if the prosecutors are saying that these victims were defending their friend or protecting Emma Yoder, then they're suggesting that it's Michael Mosley who's having to protect his friend, his female friend, J.C. Harper.
I get it. I get where you got to go with that, but that first video you showed us was, to me, very revealing. Walking out, last call, everybody's going out, and then you started. And it started all with a smack to the face. Unbelievable. Julie Janae in Nashville tonight. Thank you so much, Julia. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor, law professor at Texas Southern University, Michael Sterling. In Seattle, Washington, trial attorney Ann Bremner, and in West Palm Beach, Florida, former police lieutenant, trial attorney Rick King. Welcome, everyone. You know, Michael, you can't start a fight and then you're losing the fight and then you pull out the knife. Yeah, you just can't do that. I mean, I don't think a jury is going to accept self-defense under those circumstances. I don't care how big you are. By the way, sometimes it is a smaller guy who picks the fight. Doesn't matter. Could have real fast hands. I mean, the size to me doesn't really matter a bit. But you start it, you can't start a fight and then lose the fight and then escalate and kill in self-defense. To me, that doesn't work.
Well, somebody should tell George Zimmerman that very same thing, Vinny. But what appeared to me was that this individual was surrounded by several people, similar to the story you told in the opening. And, you know, he was clearly outnumbered. And so then we don't know what was said or what was exchanged. We don't know if we'll hear from the defendant or not. But we don't know what was said or exchanged. But if you're outnumbered and people are surrounding you and, you know, the prospect of being jumped, being physically hurt, and you have a choice. Sometimes you make a split-second decision. Let me take out one of the guys, right? Let me punch somebody because I don't know what's about to happen because he was clearly outnumbered. He's by himself, and as the defense pointed out, he's a small guy. So while I agree, Vinny, that the video demonstrates him throwing the first punch, we don't know what's being said. We don't know what's happening to make him get into a posture where he's like, I need to defend myself really quickly.
Well, no, it wasn't a posture.
These guys are about to jump me.
He initiated the physical confrontation.
Yeah, I agree, but that's what I'm saying. I don't know what the posture was. And then here's the other thing, similar to the case we talk about in Statesboro, you know, were these individuals alcohol, breath tested, like drug tested? Because they're at a bar, they're drinking. Obviously, that can impact your memory, perception, the way you perceive things. So my question becomes, were these individuals, you know, it's easy to be innocent a week or 2 weeks later or years later or months later, but we don't know what was actually happening, what was being said, what was being done, and how their impairment may be impacting their memories. So yes, I say I agree with you. Then he throws a punch, he initiates a physical confrontation, but that doesn't necessarily mean, based on the circumstances, that he wasn't justified, considering the fact that, like your story, he was surrounded by individuals who may have been threatening his safety.
All right, Ann Bremner, what do you think? I mean, he's hitting on Emma the whole night. She's saying, get away, get away, get away. And then everyone's exiting the bar, beer muscles still being flexed, and from what I saw, he started to fight.
Yeah, it's like, remember that Lyle Lovett song, It's Closing Time, unplug those people, it's like those bar fights that start in the bar, they come outside. He can't, as a first aggressor, avail himself to self-defense under these circumstances just at first blush. I see the argument that Michael has of 3 against 1. And the other thing is, why would he ruin his whole life, about this? I don't know if you've been to downtown Nashville, but, there's bar after bar after bar after bar, and it's the closing time, there's a lot of people, and it's a wonderful city, and it's someplace that's not like coming down in Seattle. I mean, this downtown Nashville is bars and music and everything. So that kind of a scene maybe isn't unusual. We don't know. Like Michael said, what were they saying to him? Was he fearful? Is it kind of a little guy? He was just trying to romance, I guess, somebody at closing time, and she took offense, but it shouldn't have ended up this way. 3 against 1, I think, can work in some ways, but the fact that he started it legally, we all know the first aggressor, you cannot then claim self-defense legally in most circumstances.
Rick King, how do you see this situation?
Whenever I'm on this and I agree with Michael Sterling, I know that I'm in the right place. So there's no sound. You can't hear a word they're saying. And not
wait a minute. Does it matter what they say? I mean, someone can say something and I can punch you? Like someone makes a joke about my wife, I can punch you? No.
It's not always entirely what they say. It's what they say based on the posture that the man takes inside of that little circle that you can't see. I always talk about slight shifts in the weight, the raising of the hands, the 1,000-mile stare. There are things that people do that let you know they are context cues or cues that you can determine that something is coming. And as Michael pointed out, as the lone person surrounded by everybody else, if you see the fight coming, sometimes you got to hit the biggest guy before it comes on you. That's one of the things you do to defend yourself. You can see it coming, so I got to take action. And I think that because you can't necessarily tell what's going on in that circle, and you can't necessarily tell the subtle or nuanced body movement of the people and what they're doing, I'm not sure that we can definitively say that he's the primary aggressor simply because he threw the first punch.
All right. Well, if he gets up on the witness stand, I hope the judge lets the jury see the video of him attacking the woman in Walmart that he's serving time for. That'd be a nice footnote to the whole thing. But we shall see if that happens. All right. Hey, that's why I bring him on, folks. I don't, sometimes they don't agree with me. I can't believe it, but sometimes they don't. Yeah, that's why we're on this side, right? We're on the right side. Okay. They're with us the whole hour. Michael Sterling, Ann Bremner, Rick King.